Good old dirt cheap trade targets. Now, look, I think that we need to preface this by saying this. We're not trading for these guys expecting them to be ones at their position, right? We're not saying that these guys are going to be running back ones, wide receiver ones, whatever. But there's going to be realistic scenarios, depth, flex starter, a 3 or 4 on your team. And we're going to let you know what those expectations are. Sometimes you got to fill out the bottom end of your roster. I'd rather trade for guys now, cheaply and affordably, than try to play the waiver wire game later in the season when it's just a crapshoot. Who is your first cheap trade target? And 2 years ago, this wouldn't have been the case. But here we are heading into the 2024 fantasy football season. Who do you got for me?
Yeah, he's cheap now. He's probably the most expensive on this list for this podcast, but still cheap. And that's Jahan Dotson. Dotson was doing a bunch of cardio last year. 626 routes that he ran, Mike, last year, which was fourth most in the NFL. Unfortunately, the yards per route run was under 1 yard per route run. He ran so many routes, did not have a ton of production last year. And it wasn't really all his fault. Look, 49 receptions, 518 yards, 4 touchdowns. It wasn't terrible, but it's not what we expected because he basically had those numbers his rookie year. So we expected him to take a step up. He did not. Unfortunately, that Washington Commanders offense was not efficient. Sam Howell was not an efficient quarterback for his wide receivers. He scored a ton of fantasy points to begin the year, but he was not helping his wide receivers out. Terry McLaurin, as good as he is, he saw 132 targets, Mike, but only caught 79 of them. It was not very efficient. He only finished as the wide receiver 31. I'm expecting a bounce back from this offense. I'm expecting a bounce back from Jahan Dotson here. Look, he had an efficient rookie year. Had a 30% dominator rating, which takes into account yards and touchdowns for that team. 30% of that production was his. He had a 102.9 passer rating when targeted in 2022, his rookie year, which was within 1 point of Tyreek Hill and Jamar Chase. So he was productive. He was efficient. He looked like a good wide receiver. He was a first-round pick, remember. We're going into this third year. I said earlier in the last podcast, the third-year breakout might be a thing of the past, but I think we still get that. We still get that step up. I'm expecting that from Jahan Dotson this year. He has got a new quarterback, the most potential he's gotten in a quarterback so far in his young career. Jaden Daniels, I have my question marks about him, but he was able to support 2 wide receivers at LSU. Let's see if he can do it again in the NFL. It's obviously going to depend on his development, but I think Jahan Dotson has the potential to jump back into the top 30 ranks at the wide receiver position in Dynasty. I'm expecting a big comeback for him. I don't know if at this point I can project him to be like top 20 like I was hoping for after his first round pick selection, but I do think he can jump back into that top 30 conversation if Jaden Daniels and this offense can take a step forward this year. What's the cost to go get Jahan Dotson right now? It's probably like a late second, an early third plus is what you're going to have to do. I don't think a third round pick is going to do it as much as a lot of people have soured on Jahan Dotson. I'm definitely on the higher end here. I think you're still going to need a late second round pick to make it happen. In fact, we were just talking to our Patreon Gold members today in our special Gold chat that is exclusive for those members. And we were talking about Jahan Dotson, buying him, selling him, Michael Wilson, a couple other players in there. So if you want to get into the Patreon, Mike, I believe we're giving a week away for free, right?
Yes, we are. But you do not get the gold tier with the week free. You just get your basic Discord access, but still then you can see what to upgrade to. I think his value should be around an early third, but people would rather just hang on to him and see what he could do instead of giving him away for that. So Nate, I love where your head is at there, and I will gladly pay that a late second for my man Jahan. And I'll take the chance. Let's go down to Tampa and let's talk about Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver Trey Palmer. I just want to throw in there some keep trade cut value for my guys too. Just to let you know where we're kind of falling on the scale here. He's player 243 on keep trade cut. I mean, he's wide receiver 89 keep trade cut. Okay, so he down there. Chris Godwin, moving back to the slot. Trey Palmer is projected to be the team's second outside wide receiver. He's a starter. He's going to build on that rookie season, 39 receptions, 385 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He did average 9.9 yards per reception. I think that's going to come up a little bit as well. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they're 30 and 28 respectively. So the possibility exists here that Trey Palmer is a long-term value buy right now. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, man, he's going to be the best wide receiver on your team forever. But the fact is, if you affordably buy a player like this and he's your wide receiver 3 for the next 3-4 years, it's just nice to have that knowledge. Like, I can roll this guy out there. I can flex him. I can do what I need to do. I don't have to worry about that. And he did run 92.9% of the team's routes last year, Nate. and that's not bad for a rookie. So, fantasy outlook, I think he's an upside stash right now. And if any Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receivers get injured, he could be a spot starter for you as well. So right now he's valued around players such as Noah Fant, A.T. Perry, and oh, how the mighty have fallen. Treylon Burks, the special teams specialist. Here's one. If you're in a rebuild right here, well, I talked about him. I was buying him on the last podcast, but I'd sell him here. Rashee Rice for Trey Palmer in a second. If you're in a rebuild, what do you think about that one, Mr. Christian?
I'm not a huge fan of Trey Palmer, to be honest. I liked him last year, but then they drafted Jalen McMillan, so I'm a little out on Trey Palmer. I don't know if I could do Rashee Rice for Palmer in a second, to be honest. Unless it was a very early second.
The 204.
Nah.
All right. Well, what else could we do? Let's do straight up Cortland Sutton for Trey Palmer. How's that sound?
Yeah.
All right. Virtual
get it
hits.
done.
Beautiful. Beautiful. There we go. Nate, do you want to move on to your next cheap buy?
I would love to, because this is one of the best values of the offseason right now. It's Gus Edwards, running back for the Chargers.
I love Gus Edwards.
This is the easiest math you could do in fantasy football. Jim Harbaugh plus Greg Roman equals lots of running plays. Insert Gus Edwards equals top 24 running back season. Doesn't matter what he's going to do next year. Who cares?
Just
Gus Edwards has been productive. He's going back with the Harbaugh brother. He's going back with Greg Roman, who he was with for many years. And they're going to run the ball because the only other running backs there are J.K. Dobbins, who I've watched his entire career sit on the sidelines because he can't stay healthy as good as he is. And Kamani Vidal, who I love, but is a fifth-round rookie out of Troy. This is Gus Edwards' backfield. His production last year, 198 attempts for 810 yards and 13 touchdowns, Mike. He's going to hit over 1,000 yards this year, probably have similar touchdown count because they're going to run the ball and control the clock, and Gus Edwards is going to be that guy. I don't know if he'll hit 250 carries, but I think that is within the realm of possibilities. Can he improve upon his 12 receptions last year? God, I hope so. Because like I said, there's not many other running backs in that backfield. So as long as they throw the ball to running backs half the time that any other team would, Gus Edwards should improve upon his 12 receptions. I believe his catch percentage is like 90-something%. He's very efficient when he actually gets throwing the ball.
81.1, close.
Yeah. Well,
we're
pretty close. What was it last year? It was like 12 for 13 or something like that.
Last year it was 92.3, and you nailed it, 12 for 13.
I love Gus. I want Gus in my team, and I really think he's set up for a running back 2 season this year. So even if he had the receptions, he could be even higher, but I'm not going to bank on the receptions. I'm going to bank on the rushing yards and the touchdowns. Suggested cost here for Gus Edwards, a 3rd rounder. You can definitely do a 3rd round pick. Mike, I went over to keep trade cut while you were just talking. He is the RB 49 right now. He's the 200th overall in the rankings there. So a 3rd rounder. Can I move Khalil Shakir? Can I move Tyler Lockett? I would move either one of those wide receivers to shore up my running back room. Someone I'm going to be really happy to be starting this year.
You know what? I have a harder time moving Tyler Lockett than Khalil Shakir, but I would do it. Can I tell you something right now? Yeah. I think Gus Edwards has his first career 1,000-yard season this year.
I think so as well.
I think so. He's not going to have a quarterback that's going to, I hate using the term vulture, but take away so many rushing attempts from him.
Yep.
I like Gus Edwards. Is he the flashiest guy? No. He's just a really, really solid football player. And guys like this, they stick around. I mean, yeah, he's 29, but Nate, he's got tread. He's got some tread left on the tires. He only has 699 career carries. Josh Jacobs has that in the first quarter of the first game. That dude's got a lot of carries. So I love this. I will move. If I could get Gus Edwards for a 3rd rounder, I feel like that's what his value should be. I feel like it'd be really hard to actually pull that off. But I would do any of those for sure. Let's talk about New York Giants running back Devin Singletary. Are you looking for consistency at the running back spot? Of course you are. No farther. This guy has not missed a game since 2019, his rookie season. He's got career averages of 4.6 yards per carry and 6.7 yards per reception. He's like Gus Edwards, but smaller. Is he flashy? No. Is he a solid guy? Yes. Is he ever supposed to be the guy? No. Does he end up being the guy? Yes. And that's good for you. That means you can put him in your lineup and just enjoy. Would you like to know what his competition is, Nate?
Tyrone Tracy and Eric Gray.
Yes. So he was running back 32 on the season in 2023. I think going to a worse offense. He's going to have more opportunities, although I am excited to see what Malik Neighbors does. We do have Daniel Bellinger there, who I don't think he's going to do much, but he might take some targets. Theo Johnson was signed there as well. And then whatever poor excuse of wide receiver core they're going to trot out there aside from Malik Neighbors. So I think he could potentially, with enough volume, be a running back 2 on your team, Nate. If you sustain injuries, of course, then you could definitely slide in there easily, but likely a running back 3. Right now, he's valued around players such as Quentin Johnston, another how the money have fallen, Jerome Ford, Marvin Mims, who I'm still in on, Rashid Shaheed. A couple, I think you could do Devin Singletary for a 25-second. It's going to get that deal done. But tell me what you think about this. Kenneth Walker III for Devin Singletary and a third.
I think you can get more than a third on top of Singletary. I think they'd be selling too cheap. Yeah.
Could you think you could get a second?
I think so.
Would you like to do a virtual handshake on that?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. We got a shocker here, but Nate, who is your next target?
Who would have guessed? The wide receiver 69 on Keep Trade Cut, and that is Demario Douglas. Everyone knows I love Demario Douglas. Oh, hey, Nate, they drafted Jalen Polk and they drafted Jahan Baker. Do you still like Demario Douglas? Yes, I do. I still like Demario Douglas because he was really good last year on an absolutely terrible offense. And Jalen Polk and Jahan Baker both play outside wide receiver. They do not play in the slot. Demario Douglas plays in the slot, and he does that really, really well. Also, Drake May's there now. And I think Drake May did pretty well with Josh Downs at North Carolina, if I remember correctly. Is Demario Douglas the new Josh Downs for Drake May? That would be pretty exciting. And what gets me excited, Mike, is this offense was one of the worst in the league last year. Demario Douglas still had 49 receptions for 561 yards, did not have a touchdown. That's not his fault. That is that Patriots offense fault. All right. But despite that, he had 7 yak rec, which was 4th in the NFL. He had 1.7 yards per route run, 39th in the NFL, but just showing how effective he was on an offense that should have been ranked 39th in the NFL if there was 39 teams. And he also had 12 missed tackles forced, which was 14th in the league, tied with Brandon Ayuk and Rashee Rice, we both know are really good at creating yards after the catch. So Demario Douglas is up there as one of the best in the league, honestly, at creating yards after the catch. I love that. I love how he's going to complement Jalen Polk and Jahan Baker as that slot receiver who can create yards. I think this is a perfect fit, a perfect complement for those other 2 wide receivers. I like what the Patriots are starting to put together. And while Demario Douglas may not be the wide receiver 1 of the future for Drake May, both Polk and Baker are rookies this year. I expect Demario Douglas to lead that wide receiver room for most of the season, if not the entire season. So he's somebody I want right now. I think he can be a really solid flex play for you this year and probably exceed your expectations, especially when you can get him right now for a 3rd-round pick. You could move a 2nd for Douglas and a 3rd possibly. Or could you move a guy like Rashid Shaheed or Jalen McMillan or any 3rd-round wide receiver that you can find in the 3rd round this year? Those are all players I would like to move for Demario Douglas. Or who are you taking from me to sell me Demario Douglas?
I would gladly move Rashid Shaheed if I could do that straight up. I would do that one for sure. And a 2nd for Douglas and a 3rd. I don't hate that either, honestly, because I think you're getting a guy who could be worth a 2nd in the next year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I like either of those, to be honest with you, because I'm targeting New England Patriots wide receiver Kendrick Bourne. He's played 279 and keep trade cut. Wide receiver 101 in triple digits here. Prior to tearing his ACL in week 8 last year, he's averaging 12.5 fantasy points per game. I think that's a pretty good flex starter, don't you? He's getting a perceived quarterback upgrade in either Jacoby Brissett or Drake May. He's under contract with the Pats. He just agreed to a 3-year deal. He's got that security until 2026. He's affordable. He's not going to be a cap casualty at all. And let's not forget, he signed this contract extension after he tore his ACL. Okay, so he tore his ACL and then they extended him. That tells me that they're confident in his ability to come back and be a contributor on this team. I'm not concerned about any security in the future. Nate, yak rec was 5.6 and his average depth of target was 9.9. So to me, there's a value, but that could pay off. He's a bench to start the season. Probably going to end up being a starter at some point. He's valued around players such as Evan Hall. By the way, if I'm buying a Colts backup, it's going to be Trey Sermon, not Evan Hall. Darnell Washington, I don't think that's going to be a thing. John Mechie, come back to me soon, John Mechie. And Chris Rodriguez, but I think right now, you could probably get him because they do put picks in there for keep trade cut. I think a 25 4th might get this dude.
It probably would. I don't think there's a lot of hype around Kendrick Bourne, especially after they drafted 2 wide receivers. If I have Kendrick Bourne, I'll trade him to you for Chris Rodriguez or a 4th-round pick, sure. Well, we'll see about this next player because as much as I like this next player and I believe in the talent, he has yet to put it together yet.
Right.
And this is Rashod Bateman, currently wide receiver 72 on Keep Trade Cut and 188 overall. Look, last year, not very impressive. 32 receptions, only 367 yards, and 1 touchdown. I'm expecting better out of the wide receiver for the 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson, but that offense ran through Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, OBJ was ahead of Rashod Bateman last year. But what we saw from Rashod Bateman was he was coming off a foot injury that he suffered in 2022, was still kind of affecting him throughout training camp. Definitely slowed the progression of his ramp up to the season. And about halfway through the season, we start to see a flip switch with Rashod Bateman. And you ask the coaches, you ask Matt Harmon over at Reception Perception. Rashod Bateman looked really, really good over the second half of last season. Now, will that equal fantasy points in 2024? I'm not sure, but he is the wide receiver 2 for this team. He is the wide receiver 2 for Lamar Jackson. Now, at best, he's the 3rd overall target on this offense. So I think the ceiling is going to be limited by Rashod Bateman. He's not going to show up and have a wide receiver 2 year this year. He's not going to be a top 24 guy. But I do think that if the Todd Monken offense, Lamar is continuing to get more comfortable with it. He's a good passer. And with Bateman seeing possibly 80 to 100 targets this year, I think we could see Bateman pull himself up, be a wide receiver 4 this year. Hopefully for you, he's more like your wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 6, but I think he could become somebody that you're going to be willing to put into your flex spot. They lost OBJ. They only brought in Devontae Walker. Like I said, Bateman's firmly in the wide receiver 2 spot. I like what we can get with him. He's pretty cheap right now. You could move a 3rd for him. Maybe you need to move a 3rd and a 4th on him because, some people who are paying attention are keeping an eye on him. The Ravens did sign him to a long-term deal, not something they had to do as they were looking at the 5th-year option with him. They decided to make it a 2-year extension instead, kind of split the difference. And I like what we got with Rashod Bateman. I like the talent still. I'm hoping that it evolves into something this year. Maybe not something great, but hey, I think we could see 700, 800 yards from Rashod Bateman this year, and you'd be happy to have that on your bench.
If it's a projected late 3rd, I don't hate going after him. There's a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't want a player or a wide receiver that is matched up with Lamar Jackson. But Nate was absolutely correct. He is a 2-time MVP of the NFL. And let's not forget, last season he passed for almost 4,000 yards. Why would you want a quarterback?
No chump. And I'm expecting bigger things in the 2nd year of this Todd Monken offense.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I will gladly pay that. If I could do it, if I could try to sneak him out for like 2/4, I would try that.
Yeah.
Because I think some people might be done with him, but it might end up being a late 3rd. So, Nate, are you ready to do some dumpster diving?
Bring us home, Mike. I'll be honest. I love this. I think this might be the best pick of your entire section here.
Look, sometimes you got to swing for the fences, and I think we could say that about the Rashod Bateman pick and mine as well, because these are guys that when you see in your sleeper chat a trade has been completed and then you see who's completed for, sometimes you see players like this and your guy and why would you do that, but this could really pay off. Let's go to the frozen tundra of Minnesota, and I'm talking about running back Ty Chandler. Nate, he is player 234, keep trade cut, and running back 64. There are rumors of him being the 1B to Aaron Jones's 1A. Did average 4.5 yards per carry last year and 7.6 yards per reception. Let's look at his stat line for the year. 102 rushes, 461 yards, 3 touchdowns, 21 receptions, 159 yards, 0 touchdowns. Let's not forget, this is also a team that was missing Kirk Cousins for a majority of the season, so they were able to kind of hone in. Cam Akers was there for a little bit, kind of snatching some. And I believe Alexander Madison was there to start the season as well. And let's be real, Aaron Jones did miss 7 games last year. He's also 29. He's getting older as well. So the fact of the matter is you could scoop him up for pretty cheap, and this could be a really, really high upside guy. I do think he's going to be a good bench piece, but if he's given a spot start or 2, he could push to be a running back 2 on that week. Probably not for the entire season, but I do want to give you an example, Nate, because I don't want to just come out here all willy-nilly. In week 15 of the 2023 season, Ty Chandler was running back 4 on the week. 23 carries, 132 yards, and 1 touchdown, 4 receptions, 25 yards, no touchdowns there. And on that week, he was ahead of players such as Kyron Williams and Rashod White, guys that finished very highly in the overall season standings. So it is possible that it could happen. They have quarterbacks. I don't know if it's an upgrade over Kirk Cousins or not yet. I don't think we could say about Sam Darnold. It's too early to know that about JJ McCarthy. So this could be a really good high upside pick. He's valued around players such as Greg Dulcich, RIP, my man, Daniel Bellinger, Jonathan Mingo, and Ezekiel Elliott. I'm throwing Zeke under the bus a lot this week. But here's one. Ty Chandler for 25 third. If your rookie draft has already passed.
Yep, I like all these values, Mike. I love all the player values. I would move a third for Ty Chandler as well. I think there is a lot of potential for production for Ty Chandler. I'm not saying he's going to be someone I want to keep on my team after this year. I don't think that he's like a great long-term dynasty buy, especially the running back position. But you're talking about, the 2 at worst, if not the 1B, with an injury-prone, I'm going to say injury-prone running back ahead of him. Just because we've seen Aaron Jones get injured over his career. He is older. It's just, honestly, it's bound to happen at that position once you start getting near 30. So I think Ty Chandler is going to have not a consistent season maybe, but he'll definitely be someone that you'll wish you had, come week 10, week 11.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those things. These are the moves that you make right now in the offseason to try to get ahead of your competition. So I hope to see you get ahead of your competition. Check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind, giving you a week for free because we love you guys. Link is in the description. And until next time, for Nate, I'm your host, Michael Bauer. Thank you for listening.